Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to In Rhythm Podcast, Episode 10. Today, we are very excited to be welcoming a special guest and our very first guest, Marques Ogden. Marques Ogden is a former NFL offensive lineman who was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2003. And in his 5-year career, he also played for the Bills, Ravens, and Titans. Mr. Ogden is now currently working as a success coach. He is a keynote speaker and the author of the book, The Success Cycle. Mr. Ogden, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Well, how about yourself?
I'm doing good. Ready to get going into the interview. And so I guess you were drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2003. The draft's coming up April 29th this year. So what I want to start by asking is, from someone who played at a high level of college football and was drafted, can you talk to us about what the draft process was like?
Yeah, man, the draft process, Will, was awesome. Like, you have, people start scouting you like either your junior year, you think you might going to be coming out, or your senior year, and you have different teams come out to practice, watch you practice, come to your games, evaluate you. If you're lucky enough to go to a bowl game, either Senior Bowl, East West Shrine, and Hula Bowl were the bowls when I was in college. You go out there, then you have like a week-long practice, and it's very grueling. You're practicing against each other at a high level. You're competing. You're talking to the different scouts. You're talking to the different, front office people. They're trying to get engaged for your personality, what you're like. Are you personable? Are you going to be coachable? And then after that, you go to the combine, or then you go to combine, you do your workouts in Indianapolis if you're invited. And then after that, you have your pro day where they come out to your school, you run your 40, run your drills. They'll put you through a lot of position drills. Some coaches have different philosophies. So some coaches might want to see be a better knee bender, might want to see better when it comes to pass blocking against, different techniques. It might see how you're able to kind of keep your back, straight upright and not bend or hunch over in your stance. So everybody has different things they're looking for, but it was a really great experience for me, being at Howard, having them come out and put me through this and help me kind of get a real good taste of what it's going to be like in the National Football League.
That's awesome. So I guess a follow-up question for that would be, I know in the NFL, they always talk about like guys in the NFL, they ask some weird questions. Were there any weird questions they asked you when you were going through that process?
Well, yeah, they'll kind of go back to high school, and some of your elementary school teachers ask questions about, what it was like there. And they'll really just try to do as deep of a delve and dig as deep as they can. If they're going to invest all this money into you, have you come into their city, come into their fan base, come into their locker room, especially if you're a high draft pick. I call, top 3 rounds are what I call a high draft pick, because more likely you're going to either start right away, depending upon your position, or you're going to get a lot of playing time, your rookie year, because they draft you that high. They don't want you sitting on the bench because, if I'm going to draft you in the first, second, or third round, you should be out there either competing to play or starting. So they do a real deep dive into your past, kind of get a good feel of, what you were like, growing up and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting, all the deep and different aspects that they going into that. Just for fun, since we have this opportunity to talk to you being a former NFL player, what are some really cool or memorable moments for you in the NFL?
Oh, for me, man, it was just I'll never forget when I was playing with the Ravens, and a guy who I grew up being a huge fan of, knew him since I was 15 years old, Ray Lewis, was my teammate. I would see him in the locker room, sit in the locker, and go in the meeting rooms and talk with him, and guys like Ed Reed and my brother and all these phenomenal players. And that's what happens sometimes. I think some young players, sometimes they get a little intimidated by big name players. And I tell all the guys, because I work with a lot of guys who are rookies. The Bills are one of my best clients I've worked with. They're rookies for several years: Tre'Davious White, Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds. And I told all those guys the same thing. Yes, the vets are great players. Impress with their accolades, but don't be intimidated by what they've done, because you deserve to be here as well. As long as you put the effort in and work hard, you will eventually become that veteran that has earned a spot at the table. So I'm always telling guys like that, don't be intimidated by great players. Just go out there and do your job, and that's all you can do, and put yourself in the best position to win.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You've been able to, play with the old generation, and then now you're able to work with the new generation. You got to see both sides of it.
Oh yeah, it was awesome, man. Watching these young guys today, I'm really happy for the Bills. I mean, I thought they were going to have a chance to go all the way. Kansas City's a tough football team, so I was happy for their growth. They're a young football team. They're really young at certain positions: quarterback, corner, left tackle, middle linebacker, and they've got some good, solid veterans around them. They kept a lot of the players. And let's go with some of the guys, but they got a good nucleus of players there. So hopefully, with the right continued leadership enhancement, they should be a good football team for many years to come.
So I have a question about the Bills, just because you said you have some clients on them, on that team, like Tre'Davious White. When they signed Stephon Diggs in this offseason, I know there was some skepticism about that, just because there were some rumors about him going about him in Minnesota. And he was obviously great this year. Josh Allen and him had a dynamic connection. Did those guys talk to you anything? Did those guys ever say anything about how he stepped in as a leader in Buffalo? Or like, what was your take on him coming in as a veteran with maybe some bad rumors about him, but he was obviously a great fit for them?
Well, see, what happens is when a team trades a player or lets a player go, there has to be some sort of reason they come up with for the fan base to be able to say, why would it go Stephon Diggs? Stephon Diggs has always been a phenomenal talent on the field. I just feel that Stephon Diggs and Kirk Cousins weren't seeing eye to eye. And unfortunately, what happens is when you let a player go and somebody who else is a star player, because Kirk Cousins is one of the star players for the Vikings, you have to come up with some sort of narrative to why it didn't work out. And I feel Stephon was always a great talent. And from what I heard about him from some of the guys that I knew around the league, he was a good guy, just not in the right system. And that happens sometimes. So he was very fortunate to get to a good system with a lot of young talent like Josh, Tre'Davious, Deion Dawkins, Tremaine Edmonds, and company. And with that type of young talent, and you have a veteran receiver who can play the game, that can really come in and set the culture and create a high-performing winning culture, you're going to have a good player as long as he's able to gel and have the young guys follow his lead, which he did. And I think they've got a great, 1-2 punch with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in Buffalo for many years to come.
Yeah, that's a great analysis on that take. So back to what you were saying about how when you were in Baltimore, how you played with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and your brother. It's so all the time in all sports you hear about guys who have great talent. I play baseball, and like this is true in baseball too. It's like there's always guys with talent who don't make it to the elite level in the professional league. But obviously you saw firsthand what Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and your brother do every day. What's the difference in the mindset between players like that and players who are really good but just don't end up kind of panning out per se in sports?
It's two big things: their work ethic and their ability to be coached. I tell people, if you're an amazing talent that can't be coached, you'll always be what I call a great street player. Like you'll be a great street basketball player who plays pickup basketball. You'll be one of those great guys who go play flag football, or even like one of those other leagues, like one of those, AFL leagues where you can go play, be a great star. And, but there's no real structure. There's no real strategic plan. There's no real steps to make a high performing winning culture to win, because there's no money involved. And when you're a great talent, if you can't be coached, no one wants you on that football team. Right? So like take the tackle, Isaiah Wilson's a first round pick last year to the Titans out of Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't work out well in Tennessee, right? I mean, he's a first round pick last year, has had some issues off the field. And again, from what I've heard from other people that know him around the league, he didn't have a great work ethic this year. And he relied on being a first round draft to push him and keep him in the league. And it's very rare, but it will happen. A team will cut you or move you if you're not working out. So they kept him the whole year. He didn't play. He had some issues with work ethic. He had some issues, with being coachable. So they put him on the sideline. And then at the end of the year, when they tried to see if he was going to try to, come back better than ever next year and become a better player, he didn't show those signs. So what they traded him. He went to Miami. Down in Miami, he got into some off-the-field issues, unfortunately. So what happens? Miami offered him help to help him deal with off the field issues. He declined their offer. They released him. So unfortunately, you do get that sometimes where great talent is not coachable or their work ethic doesn't match their talent. And that's where you have guys who are just good players that might play for a little while, but they're not going to stay and be phenomenal at players like my brother, Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, because the mental mindset of being an athlete, that's where it really kicks in, because your body is going to push as hard as your mindset will let it push. And if you don't have that ability to keep going through difficult times, and that's what an athlete is, you will not make it. And that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much like the mental aspect is part of being successful that you don't see and like from the fans' perspective. But yeah, so bringing it back to the NFL draft real quick, you were a 6th round pick yourself. What takeaways do you have for guys that are getting picked late this year? And if you could do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
So what I would tell the late round guys is treat it as if you are undrafted, right? You'll get a signing bonus, which is awesome, which is great. You'll probably get, I think I got like $100,000 when I was drafted as a signing bonus, and which is awesome. It's money, it's your money. But if you don't come to the field or to the facility or to the, I'll call it, the Mecca, which is going to be your whatever team drafts you, and your whole stadium and the whole training camp and the whole facility ready to play football, you won't make it. You won't make it. And this is where I tell players that just because you're drafted doesn't mean you have a comfortable position. Like I said, Wilson was a first rounder last year. Was traded by the Titans at the end of the year. They'll give you a little bit of leeway if you're a high draft pick. But if you don't show signs of growth, coachable, or potential, you are out. If you're a late round draft pick, you're not picking up the system, or you're not working hard, they'll move on from you. They will accept mental mistakes. They will accept trying to adjust. That happens. That's part of the beast. But they won't accept lack of effort, lack of, of putting in, the drive, the grit, the hard work, and they won't accept you making the same mental mistakes over and over and over again. So I tell guys to make that their priority. And for me, I wish I would have learned how to not take things so personal when I was young. I thought my coach didn't like me. In reality, my coach didn't know how to communicate with me, and it wasn't his job to figure out how to communicate with me. It should have been my job to figure out how to communicate better with him. And I didn't really learn that until I was, went to my next team. And I'm like, man, I had a good setup in Jacksonville, but instead of trying to talk to my coach and figure out how I could get better, I just wanted to get out of there and get traded to somebody else where I felt I could go and make a better fit. But I'll tell young guys, if you've got a problem with your coach, go talk to them. Again, it's not the coach's job to mesh with you. It's your job to mesh with your coach.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
And so before we get into your business aspect of your life and your story, I want to just ask a kind of a fun question. What team do you root for on Sundays nowadays? Do you have a team, or are you more of a players guy?
No, I like play, but I'm a Baltimore Ravens guy. I played there. My brother played there. I lived in Baltimore for many years. After retirement, I had a lot of success there. And, I just know a lot of the guys. Like, one of my good friends is the pastor or the chaplain for the retired Ravens players in the Baltimore area, which is awesome. He's a phenomenal guy, spiritual guy. I actually met him, in 2012, and we've been friends ever since. So I have strong ties to Baltimore, and I also, of course, root for Buffalo because they're one of my best clients. Of course, I always like the Jaguars and the Titans. I play for all 4 teams, so I like those 4. And if they're on not playing the Ravens, I'll always root for those guys. But at the end of the day, I'm a Ravens and Bills. Those are my 2 top teams that I root for.
Well, then it seems like you're going to have a lot of success as a fan in the next couple of years because both those teams are rocking and rolling, it seems like, in the AFC.
Yeah, it
So,
looks like it. If the Ravens can get some freaking receivers, man.
oh,
I'm not. Was Sammy Watkins? Like that's he was a phenomenal guy years ago. He's a good veteran, but he's not big. We don't have any size. Coming across the middle. We don't have a lot of that's what we're lacking is some real big playmaking receivers with Baltimore. If they can get that adjusted and get a little bit better with some edge pass rushers. They lost Matt Judon and a couple other guys. I think they're going to have a good chance to make some noise this year.
that's we'll see what happens. And this is my roommate's terrible tower behind me, so I'm not a Steelers fan, so don't worry about that one.
All right, gotcha. It's all good.
Yeah, that's him. But so going into your business aspect, when you're out of the league, you initially didn't find success. You had some failures in the business industry out of the NFL. So about your construction business, it went to the ground. How were you able to bounce back, and what steps did you take, and how maybe did your football career kind of prepare you for recovering from that?
So I bounced back by learning that I bounced back after having a spoiled milk rock bottom moment when I was a custodian and I was making $8.20 an hour in 2013 September, and somebody spoiled milk, rotten banana peels, horrible, nasty, protruding meat got over my skin, my clothes, my body, and that's when I realized that it was my fault with the construction company. I made the mistakes. I got over leveraged. I became a bad leader. And that was the turning point for me to kind of get myself out of feeling in that, what I call that victim mindset, where it was always somebody else's fault, poor Marcus, yada, yada, yada. And I ended up really setting myself up to be a speaker, started that process, came home, worked on some things I was good at. But for about the first 2.5 years, fellas, I didn't get one paid speaking job. I kept working, I kept going, I kept grinding, I kept persevering. Got my first paid speaking job in April 2016 for a small college called Miller Mott in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that helped to catapult us to a higher level. And we just continue to make moves and go down the path and really, I had some great team members, and now we do a lot of keynote speaking, executive coaching, consulting. We work with a lot of organizations all across the U.S. and actually across the globe, international, and we're really fortunate. But, that spoiled milk rock bottom moment really woke me up to make me realize that where I was going was not where I wanted to be heading.
That's
Yeah,
great.
so,
I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just going to say, keeping on that same topic and thinking about athletes in general, you'll hear stories that'll come out every few years about professional athletes having these financial problems. What do you think's the reason for this? Do you think it's the unfamiliarity with professional contracts because there's so much money now, or just bad choices in general?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of bad choices. Sometimes it's overspending. Sometimes trying to keep up with the Joneses. But then a lot of times what happens is that players end up getting divorced. And I saw, actually one of my good friends made me aware that African-American NFL players, 70% are divorced within 2 years of retirement. 70%. And the number one thing that causes financial turmoil for anybody is divorce, right? And so take Jeff Bezos. When Jeff Bezos got divorced, he had to write a check to his wife for $153 billion. Billion. Now he's worth 200 billion again today, but again, half his money, 153 billion, went to his ex-wife. So unfortunately for players, sometimes when we leave the game, we don't adjust well. It's kind of like the NFL divorces us. And a lot of guys have trouble with that adjustment. And if they, like I had trouble with that adjustment, when I left the game, I was an alcoholic, I was a pain popping addict, I was depressed, nightlife, gambling, etc. And if I was with my wife at that time, I might not have made it. I don't know. It was a lot. So that's why I didn't get married in the NFL, because I knew that during the game and after the game, it might have been hard for me to do that. So I feel it's also just players struggling to transition from the gridiron to everyday corporate life.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to guys who maybe don't find success in the NFL. They had high expectations, and they're falling down the hole like you did. What do you tell them now if you were consulting them?
I would tell them they need to identify their 3 biggest strengths. Steve Jobs had a great saying, we'll spend most of our lives at work. And the only way to find true joy and passion is love seriously what you do. He didn't say love, he said love or love seriously to that next level what you do. So in his words, it's like, if we're gonna spend a lot of our time at work, we need to have passion and a love for what we do to find meaning in our lives and have a great reward for what we are doing. And I'll tell guys, figure out what your 3 biggest strengths are. You figure out your 3 biggest strengths, then from there, compute what do you want to do or what type of career can you do? Or if you can't get there yet, do other jobs that you don't like. Like for me, I loved football coaching. It was a lot of my body, but I didn't love being a custodian. I did it and I was proud to have a job, but I didn't want to set out to be a custodian. I had worked hard, had a degree, had some good things happen to me, but had a lot of bad happen to me. And when I took that job, I was very appreciative, but it humbled me, which I needed because I had a real bad case of egomaniac syndrome. And because of that, that's why I lost my business. I made some bad mistakes. So I tell players, clients, anybody that's struggling to transition, identify your 3 biggest strengths. Then from there, figure out what you want to do. And if you can't do that job because it's too far away from you, or kind of like, me, want to be a speaker, but I'm also going to make money right away. I did other jobs. I did football coaching. I was a birthday party at Clowns playing football with kids. I ran a 7-on-7 camp. I did all these things. I was a custodian while pursuing the speaking career at the same time.
Great. That's awesome. So you said you're doing speaking. What else are you up to right now?
I love that. I'm speaking, I'm a couple of books. I own a couple different businesses. One of my businesses is called Grind Oral Care, which is www.grindoralcare.com. It's a toothpaste brand. My business partner is a veteran. It's veteran owned. And it's a great toothpaste to help you with whitening your teeth, helps you with your gums. It's much softer. And it's just a great brand. I've been with them now for about 2 months. And I have different businesses I'm associated with. I have some ownership and some stock ownership in. And what I'm doing now is aligning ourselves with brands that make sense, either to be an owner or be on their board. And we're leveraging what we have with our speaking and our consulting to help us continue to help other people and get out in front of people to the masses.
That's great. And how's your family doing?
Family's good, man. Married, 2 kids. I have 2 daughters, 17 and 6.5. Everybody's good, man. So, daughter's a junior in high school. My youngest daughter is in 1st grade. So my wife's a teacher, and it's great. She's been on spring break this week. She goes back to work next week, and then I'll be back to as normal. All I do, grinding and, calls and all the stuff that I do all day, every day.
That's good stuff.
That's great, and that's awesome. And I'm glad that you recovered from your adversity, and now you're thriving, you're doing great. And I really want to thank you for coming on. That's all we have for today. I know you're a really busy man, so I really appreciate your time that you gave to us tonight. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
Graham, it was awesome, fellas. Again, great job, great work. I love you guys are out there grinding, getting this done. Podcasting is a great way to meet people and grow your brand and get out there. So keep it up, fellas. That's excellent stuff.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
All right, man. Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great night, fellas. Talk to y'all soon.